forgotten corners of the world, amidst the graves of a bygone people, there lay a statue, once nothing more than a cold and lifeless figure of stone. For centuries, the wind howled and storms raged across its body, and the people who had once revered her godlike visage faded into obscurity. The deity they had worshipped had been annulled, erased from memory, and cast into the void. But before that final oblivion, in a last flicker of divine power, the fallen god etched their essence into the marble, one final act meant to outlast eternity. She awoke, not with a gasp or a cry, but with an eerie silence. Her first memory was of a cemetery, cracked gravestones stretching out in all directions under a pale sky. She did not know who she was or why she existed. The dirt under her feet was a reminder that everything died, and yet here she stood, animate. Flesh that was not flesh, veins that did not carry blood but the memory of stone. A doll of marble. The world was vast and strange to her, yet she wandered it for centuries without aim. In time, the races of men and elves found her a curiosity at first. They marveled at her resilience and the strength of her sculpted limbs. Kings and warlords enslaved her, using her immortality for their own gains, sending her into battles where she could not die, or parading her as an oddity at court. Her face, though beautiful, became a mask of suffering. Every time she was shattered, crushed, or torn apart, she would reform. From the smallest fragment of herself, she would regenerate. Her body, though broken 1,000 times, could never escape its form. She learned that her curse was not merely her immortality, but the inescapable prison of her existence. She was a creation of forgotten divinity, incapable of change or release. Her hair grew, her nails lengthened, but every moment she felt it. A tether to life she had never asked for, a curse embedded in her very being. As the years passed, her despair deepened. She began to understand loss in ways that few could imagine. Those around her aged, decayed, and died. Cities rose and fell, and still she remained untouched by time, unable to follow them into oblivion. With every passing century, she felt the weight of her existence more acutely. Eventually, she came to hate herself for being alive, for being a remnant of a forgotten god who had abandoned her as all things abandoned life. She sought knowledge, hoping to find some end to her cursed existence. She studied magic, alchemy, and the dark arts. She beseeched wizards, sages, and warlocks, asking for any spell that could free her. None could. Some tried, only to fail. Others feared her power, seeing her as a harbinger of some long-forgotten doom. But no one knew how to end her existence. At last, Doll of Marble sought out death itself. It was not a god she met, but a force, an endless, quiet inevitability. When she stood before death, she pleaded. She had no more strength for hatred, no more drive for vengeance. All she wanted was release. She asked to be taken as all living things are, to join the dust of the earth as the acolytes who once worshipped her creator had. Death gazed upon her with eyes of endless shadow. "I cannot take you," it whispered. "You are not of this world, nor its natural life. You are bound to the will of a forgotten god. Even I have no dominion over you." The words were colder than any tombstone she had ever touched. In that moment, she understood fully. curse was not just that she could not die, but that she was outside the very reach of death itself. She could shatter her body, crumble into dust, but always she would return, for she was eternal. With that knowledge, she turned away from all life. For what could she do when nothing could change her fate? She withdrew into the wilderness, far from the eyes of men or elves. In the deep silence of forgotten ruins, she built herself a prison of solitude. Here she would wait, perhaps for the universe to collapse, for the stars to dim, and for all things to return to the void. Only then, perhaps, would her existence finally cease. And so the doll of marble sits as silent as the grave from which she once rose, waiting for an end that may never come. Cursed with the memory of life, but never truly part of it, she is a relic of a forgotten god, a being that no one remembers yet will never be forgotten.